Hello.
Hi, Vibha. How are you?
How are you? Good to see you.
Good too. How are you?
All well.
Actually, good to see
Okay.
you upside down, which is how I see you on a lot of Instagram posts, right?
You too. You are guilty as charged as well.
Well,
Oh.
inspired.
So Preeti, your audio is coming in and out. Can you hear me clearly?
I can hear you clearly. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. All right, guys. So we're going to kickstart House of Episode 24, House of Experts episode 24. I have with me a very special guest today. Um, Quick introduction about Preeti. So Priti Rathi Gupta, best known as a financial feminist. She is the founder of LXME, also known as Lakshmi, which is India's first financial planning platform exclusively for women. She's also worked in the commodities business with Anand Rathi, which is a family business for her. She'll be talking a little bit about that. She's, of course, won many accolades for her contribution to the commodities and finance industries. She's also a passionate filmmaker. So, for any of you who watched Karwa, Preeti had obviously a large role to play there. And additionally, she's also obviously a big yoga fan. I've seen her do some incredible yoga positions. So do follow Priti Rathi Gupta on her personal Instagram. And of course, you should follow LXME Lakshmi to learn more about financial planning. Lakshmi has so far already trained 6,500 women and enabled them to financially be secure. In addition to Preeti's amazing educational and professional achievements, I think what really makes Preeti stand out is just her warmth. I've had the pleasure of interacting with Preeti a few times now, and I'm just overwhelmed by her warmth, hospitality, and graciousness every time. So I think Preeti, your warmth, graciousness just sort of supersede all the amazing work you have done. I mean, I'm really just overwhelmed every time I get a chance to interact with you. So welcome to the show, Preeti.
Thanks, Vibha. That really is such a. I actually feel like I'm. No, so the pleasure is
Well,
all mine. I think it's been great. Each time we've connected, I think I have HBS to for that. And it's always been wonderful. But I think we need to do more of that more often.
absolutely. But I'm glad we're getting a chance to do this conversation. And I'm going to make the most of the time I get with Priti Rathi Gupta today, guys. So we have 60 minutes. I'm going to be your host. My name is Vibha Kagzi. I'm the founder of reachiv.com. And as always, my opening question, Preeti, to you is, since I run an education and careers advisory, I always like to backtrack into, your early years, formative years, your childhood, and of course, your education that sort of led you to where you are today. So if you could just flash back to the early years, please.
So of course, early growing years were a lot of, moved to city, but I think what really impacted or really kind of drove me towards, the industry of, the services industry was actually others nudge, push, pretty much like orders to say that, as soon as I started university, college, I went to HR college graduation, and we had HR had this lovely timing 10 in the morning, and my father had to make sure that I'm use of the rest of the day. So immediately, as soon as college got over, I had to speedily drive to his office, sit with him, and he made sure that as a woman, as a girl, I don't think he even had a gender bias in that sense, but I think one thing he wanted me to really pick up was the life skill of managing money. You know, how do you manage money? How do you invest? How do you look after your portfolio? This was really early on, you know, when I was 16, 17. And that's where it all started. Then my uncle set up a stockbroking firm. And
So early on, sort of growing up, I know you have a brother. Did you face any sort of the gender divide at home? You know, what was your family environment like?
you know, we were a very, very nuclear family. My parents were very, I mean, they were really young. My mom was 19, was born. So you can imagine, really young parents. I don't think they kind of, you know, my sister or brother and me. Like I said, there was no gender bias really. I think what was different was because I was the oldest and the other child. I think, and as young parents, they were also kind of finding their way. And my father was, I mean, I remember him always telling me that, you know, you need to learn how to manage money. You need to be not just financially independent, but really be able to take care, you know, wealth in the portfolio. And I think he said the same, brother. I think, you know, in at least that is it. I think the only differentiation I look back was that he just decided to get me married at a very early age, and I don't think he insisted that for my brother. But I think, you know, we had a 4-5 year gap between us, so I
Okay.
guess for some reason I was married off. So,
Okay. So you
yeah,
got married early, but overall, you didn't really face any gender bias. And it
not
sounds like very early on, you got introduced to the idea of financial planning. Okay, cool.
absolutely.
All right. And you were talking about how you were sort of doing HR college and then part-time.
Yeah, and then interned with my uncle who was setting a stockbroking company. And I think those were really the formative years, right? It kind of made, you know, finance part of me because I just did so much of it. You know, stock, um, BSC, these were terms that were, you know, said pretty often in my life. So it was nothing new. Uh, so it kind of, I don't think it really struck me. I had a lot of friends in college who weren't really going to office or doing much. And I think when I spoke to them about this, they were like, oh, okay, it sounds really intimidating. It sounds really scary. That even then I was like, what, you know, I couldn't kind of fathom that. Why is this scary? Why is not, for me, it was very natural. But I think for a lot of the, especially my friends, girls, very unnatural to be talking about finance, stockbroking, although I went to a commerce college. So I think that
Okay.
kind of sets the scene for, you know, why finance and why, you know, finance and women.
Okay. So that's the sort of early influences of finance and wanting to be with the in a female-centric business. Then what happened? How did Anand Rathi come along? How did the commodities business come along for you?
So yeah, that, I mean, it's because the minute I got married and my graduation after my, and you know, I think it was a very I got married in a very traditional family where you had to be the good bahu, etc. But luckily for me, my husband started a stockbroking company at that time. He was doing textiles, and he said, "Since you know it, why don't you help me set it up?"
Hmm.
So that was a big opportunity, you know. I said, "Okay, I'm going to do this," and I helped him set up his company. I remember really doing the institutional trades, very hands-on, like just, you know, really, like they say, starting from the bottom. Uh, so set that up. In between, took a break for my kids, and realized that the one thing that I missed is, you know, education and higher learning. And I went to SP Gen to study. And that kind of, you know, I always give a lot of credit to education at various stages of my life. That kick-started my, you know, my journey into commodities and commodities, because when I came back, so my father and husband started Rathi together. And when I came back after my younger son, stockbroking was a very, very professional field by then. And I just felt that, I wanted to do something. It was a very mature industry. I wanted something different where it was challenging and, something that was new for the company. So, had just started in India. And I said, okay, this sounds interesting. I do want to set up this business. And I, went about setting up as part of Anand Rathi under the. And those to me remained one of my most challenging years, a constant reminder. I think that was the first time that I was really reminded that I'm a woman in a very male-dominated space. Because commodities was essentially.
So up to that point, when, getting married very young, finding a supportive husband who said, go get your education. So you went to SP Gen, then you come back, you join Anand Rathi, which your husband and dad set up together. So up to that point, you have not faced the gender divide whatsoever. It seems like supportive dad, supportive husband.
Not at all, Vibha, but I personally take offense to the fact that you have to say supportive father, supportive husband, I mean, it's both ways, right? Today, as a woman, if you want to pursue an education or something, it's just a reminder. Why should we say, somebody supported me doing it?
Right.
Away credit from him or from my father or my husband. But having said that, I think as, to kind of reach out to do what you want to do, needs a lot of zeal from within. And I think people are around, support you. If you kind of say that, yes, this is something to do to break these barriers, I want to, and you have to work enormously hard. I think after just work a little bit more harder to get there. So set up commodities, and like I said, up till then I had never really felt that as a woman or felt like a misfit in the industry. I think it's only commodity futures I realized, because commodity futures, it was a very unorganized market, and my role was to actually get the unorganized market, the organized platforms or the exchanges. So it needed me to go to mandi, and if you imagine a mandi, it is essentially a group of traders sitting under a tree, and at the end of the day settling trade. So it was like this, how you imagine old towns, villages, like a panchayat, and these people who would, just do verbal trade, settle it at the end of the day. And it was
all men.
All men. And I remember that my first few visits to it's just so fresh in my memory, where the men would just look past. They would, they were like, I was in, can't see you. But my team members who went with me, they would just make eye contact and talk. And, it was something I'd never experienced all my life. And here it was, and you have to deal with it. And Vibha, I think it took me a year more to make my place in that industry. I actually, when I made my future, after a year and a half, people would say, oh, what's from Anand Rathi? Okay, we've heard. So I think that was a life. I mean, it was a turning point in life, really. It was a lot of, particularly the fact that as a woman, you really need to kind of, make your place within this domain.
Okay.
It's personal growth, I think.
Okay. I'm just going to take a quick question here, Priti, from Sanjeev, who says, how do you manage your work in motherhood? Do you face any difficulty in life managing, sort of balancing work and family life? So what's your take on the whole balancing thing? Is it a fine balance? Is it not even a question to be addressed? What do you think?
I don't think there is ever balance. And I don't know whether it's just for a woman, but I can say this for sure, that there is no balance. And I think striving for balance is also worth the trouble. I think the way I've kind of managed that, if this is work, I'm giving it my 100% right now. if I'm at home, I'm giving this my 100%. It was very challenging. Vibha, my son was 8 months old. And it was a very challenging time because, as a small, he would fall ill. And, my heart would tear into two, like, oh my God, baby's not well and yet I have to go to university, I have to go to college. And I think that was the most difficult time. And at that point, the family support really, for them to stand through or stand beside me, whether it's my husband, mother-in-law, my parents, to say that, go on, study. Father-in-law was the biggest supporter of me really going in. And, for him to, all right, you'll soon be there. But it is tough. I don't think there exists a balance. Incidentally, I think it's during these times, the COVID times, that I've probably found the best balance, because working from home has been quite a blessing in some
right. Okay, so let's move to Lakshmi. If you could just sort of tell us what Lakshmi does and what is the platform all about?
So Lakshmi is a financial planning app for women. So it's like the money app for the core of Lakshmi is around a community. It's a peer-to-peer discussion with women have with each other about money, which is rare. I mean, if you look around you, Vibha, just look around and say how many of your women friends really talk money, talk finances, talk about wealth creation. It's really rare, because we'll talk about relationship, we'll talk about family, we might go and talk about jobs as well if we are working, but when it comes to really money, we just shy away from that conversation. So the core is, of course,
what I think is like what's happening is there's a dichotomy, right? You'll find women who are like, maybe women like you and me who are fully in control of our finances. We track the market, we track our investments, we know what's going on. But that's one sort of subset. And then there's the others, like group B, which is just completely unaware, relying on their brothers, fathers, or husbands to manage their finances, and are interestingly quite okay doing that. I mean, they don't really think of that as a problem. So,
let me put this in perspective with some stats. So, for example, just 14% of the population really invests, right? So, which by itself is a very small number. Of that 40%, just 33% women are investing. And of that 33%, actually only 1/3 take those decisions on their own. So you actually have less.
So let me get this right. So 14% of people are investing in India. Of the 14%, 33% are women. Of the 3%, majority decisions are being made by 1/3. Okay.
1/3. So essentially, you're saying about 1.5 or 2% of women really take their own money decisions. Now, that is a very, very poor figure, and that should. So, if you and I are managing our money, we are in that 1%.
Sure, of course.
So so the gap between the ones who are managing and not managing is very, very large. And that's the gap that Lakshmi aims to bring. Because we all talk about feminism, equality. I think the two key things that we need to address. One, I think the gender pay gap, which is where we earn less, we earn almost 30%, and the other is really is because you have to, if you're less, you need to manage it more effectively to make sure that your money. Otherwise, there is no equality. You can keep talking till the cows come home, but it ain't happening. Get both of these in order, and which is why investing in your money, personal finance, financial planning for is actually one of the most critical life skills that a woman needs to.
Okay, I have a question here from Chris Ann, who says, what inspired you to set up a women-centric company? So I think you're sort of touching upon that. Is there anything else you'd like to add around here?
Yeah, so when so this actually happened, Vibha, over the years. Look, I've always, because I have financial services, I've always seen women within the sector as well as all my friends outside, really not, wanting to manage money, shying away, intimidated, and
Sure.
I could not wrap around it. There was that seed, right, that I had to do something about it. And then I went to Harvard. I did OPM, Harvard Business School, and we were doing a strategy pitch there for just and
Just a general business idea. Okay.
new business idea. So,
Okay.
you know, and you know how Harvard is, right? Harvard is like living groups, and within living groups, everyone comes up with an idea. And that was Lakshmi. And at
So
that point,
it was an academic exercise.
absolutely. So at that point in
Okay.
time, absolutely so. And I was thinking, and I for the lack of, because I not thought about it, I think that dichotomy really stayed in my mind, that we pray to Goddess Lakshmi for wealth, but as a woman, as women, we kind of think that we are not, we're not adept. We don't have the aptitude to manage, and which is why I just called it at that point in time, and I made this strategy pitch. And I think this is a very, very interesting anecdote I have to share with you. So this is a classroom of 167 people, and as is the world divided, the
Wow.
and when I make this pitch, in the pitch, about half the men have a question, right? Because we make it in the pitch, post the session, you'll ask you questions. And most of these questions were, why do you need a separate platform for women? Why doesn't the existing platform serve the purpose? But each of the 27 women said, wow, that's such an incredible idea and such a strategy. And, I wish that and from all over the world, right? So there are, 20 different countries. All of them universally said there's such a great need for it. And
Right.
that's with me, that kind of explained why we need one, because
Now I'm curious to know what the 140 men thought of your idea.
so they said, right, why do you need a separate platform? Isn't what we have already enough,
Ah.
they not understand why a separate. And I think this by itself explains, right, that financial services is essentially, serviced by, and
Hmm.
men are able to talk to women because women look at money differently.
Sure.
For me, that was the realization. That moment was a realization that as a woman, a place to fill this gap, start something, which meets the financial needs of women. And as soon as I was back home in Mumbai, that's the first thing I started. And that's
Oh,
how
wow.
Lakshmi.
So Harvard gave birth to your idea.
Absolutely. Totally.
Let's hope no one from the financial fundraising committee at Harvard's hearing this, Priti. Otherwise, you're in trouble. Very soon
Well,
they'll be calling you.
I think a lot of them are aware.
Okay, great. So hopefully a case study on Lakshmi soon coming up at Harvard Business School. Uh, Given your background at Harvard, the fact that the company was even, sort of born at Harvard. Let's talk a little bit about the Harvard experience. So what made you go? Why OPM? What made you figure out you needed to upskill? Having been through HR and SPGen, why another degree?
So I mean, it was after SPGen, I think the realization was that education is one of the best gifts that you can give yourself, a constant learning,
Sure.
no matter what. I missed out on being able to do it as most people would in continuation with their graduation and a break and then an MBA. But nevertheless, I think it was just a huge opportunity. Uh, I had a very good friend who really, it's a experience. You must go. And I think, I remembered what SPGen really added to my life. I felt it was a great time because by that time I been in the commodities and currencies business for almost 4 years. It was time to kind of just take a step back, uh, rethink, rejuvenate, and come back and say, okay, what is, just step out and look at your businesses. And that's why OPM, I think it was it remains to be one of my best life decisions, really, to go to Harvard. Because, strangely enough, I think as women in India, we live in a protected, live in a protected environment. We don't get the opportunity, even if you go to SP Jain was great, but Howard was a completely different quality, right? You just meet so many people around the world. There are just so many experiences to share. It's the professors, it's the setting, it's the network,
Sure.
learning from each other. And that's how OPM happened.
Okay, I think we have a couple of people asking, sort of commenting that your voice is cracking. Is there anything on the network front?
I don't know. I can actually, can anybody else also? I think Vinita's also saying, yeah. Hi, Vinita.
Now it's a bit better. I think whatever
Okay.
angle you're at now, just if you can, just stay there, huh?
Okay. Is this better?
Okay. Yeah,
Guys,
much better.
yeah.
Let's stay here. Let's try this.
Okay.
Okay. So you went to Harvard, you got this whole international perspective, this global exposure, etc. Then you come back and say, okay, I'm going to, sort of give birth to Lakshmi. I have a question here from Uf Mirchi, who says, can you tell us what goes behind building a company such as yours from ground up? Okay, great. So what did you do next? How do you start a business like this? How do you start a platform?
So I think, like I said, when you opt for learning in your life gives you these constant challenges and opportunities in which you learn even more. So interestingly, Lakshmi is very much like a startup,
Sure.
kind of bootstrapped by Anand Rathi, but like a startup. Vibha, I can tell you, working in a conventional, traditional business and then hopping over to the other side to start
Sure.
something Lakshmi has required a huge mind shift.
Mind
So
shift, yeah.
absolutely. I mean, to just go back to the drawing board,
Yeah.
set up, start something with where words like break even, profitable are probably not the key words, right? Looking
Right.
at customer acquisition cost and lifetime value of a customer, etc.
So the
So
metrics itself that you started looking at changed. You're suddenly looking at CAC. You start looking at like completely different metrics. Okay.
so it was interesting. I mean, I it was easy in a sense that it was bootstrapped. That challenge, but I think to get one of the key things is that and this is a learning that that has come from a lot of friends who've started business, which are like is that you cannot grow a business like Lakshmi under the larger, under the umbrella of a larger existing company. So therefore, we had to kind of shift it, move it away, and start an independent entity. And that was in certain ways very, very challenging. Lakshmi is a tech platform. I don't come from the technology background. So
Sure.
getting into the nitty-gritties of that dirty, that understanding every piece of that will that makes Lakshmi what it is, completely seamless on the platform. And today I know that technology as well as engineers out there. So it needed a lot of unlearning and learning.
New, okay, completely new sort of approach to setting up a business. Okay. What sort of like challenges, early on? So you said technology was one, metrics were another. What other sort of real sort of tangible challenges did you face when you went in and you were like, okay, what how do we build this?
So one was, of course, technology, and building the technology, and while what once it's developed is great and seamless, there's a lot of reiteration that goes into it, right? Wireframing, all of that, right? So that was one journey that was very, very challenging, given that I didn't have that background. And the second piece was, of course, to look Lakshmi product where you're telling women to start their journey of investing, and it's not a solution that women are anyway saying that you want to invest. So to really create the need felt to really talk create a team which is as passionate for a business. You need a lot of passion within the team, you know, so people who believe in the same purpose as you do, and creating that team, getting people on board. I think that, and that journey, I don't think it was a one-time thing. I think that you know,
Then you're learning every day. Okay.
every.
Okay, great. That was a very candid and sort of realistic response. Thank you for that. I'm going to take this question from Vinita here, who says, was it easy to leave family for 2 months and go to Harvard? How did that go down with the family? And, you know, how was that? Because I know OPM is staggered over 3 years, right? So every year to sort of say, okay, guys, I'm off again.
It's actually for a month for years. I know when I went the first time, I was like on the flight, but thinking maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Why shouldn't be doing this? Because it was family as well as it was believing both, and you don't know how this is, you know, how they will both manage while you're away. But once you get onto the flight, and once you are in Boston, and once you are in Howard, I think I think the university makes you forget, right? You forget everything. They make you work so hard, so you have this time to think about it. but I also think that, you know, just that learning is just so immersive that once, you know, I had no doubts that I will be able to do time. I will go for the second unit, third unit. I think taking that first step is really hard. And I think that's why probably, again, I feel that your organization, you know, that you are leading kind of builds that mechanism where it is coping, it is doing everything without, you realize that you know, so it is working the way it's supposed to. And similarly,
in that sense, you were sort of almost stress testing the organization, right? Where you're like, okay, guys, I'm away, figure it out.
Right. I remember I would get emails and I would have messages, urgent messages. Oh, we've sent you emails and can you reply, and, you know, all of that. And I think after the first week, I actually told them, just take decisions, whatever you can, until it is like a matter of life and death. Reach out to me. Because that was a realization as well, that if the organization is still dependent on
then you've not set up an organization. Yeah. Okay, great. All right. Vinita says you're really great and bold enough to take this step. Amazing. Okay, great. Thank you, Vinita, for your compliment. So let's go back to Lakshmi. So you set up the platform, you hired the right people, etc. What is financial planning? You know, if you were to just break it down for a layman, and I have a question here which says, you know, ma'am, tell me about future planning if we are in our 30s, etc. How should a layperson just even think about financial planning? You know, if you could just give us a very simple framework that we could all take away from your expertise today.
Okay, so I think one of the probably the not oft said truth of planning is that it is tailoring you know, money according to it's a very personalized journey. And each person, based on what stage they are, what life stage they are, how old they are, and what their life goals are, creates a financial plan. So financial plan is essentially just the process of managing your money to meet your today's needs, make sure that your future goals and plans are achieved. And for women, even more so, because as women, we have different life stages. We have career breaks, we have maternity breaks, we live longer than men. The way we look at money is very different. So for us, financial planning, there are even a few more unique elements that it. So joining the dots of saying, I'm here and I need to be, and these are the, you know, these are the places which could be bottlenecks, which could be friction points, and how do I ensure that my money encounters all of these very seamlessly? So it's like a Google map, right? When I'm here, I want to get there. What are the things that I need to do with my money? That's essentially finance.
So very simply put, it's like I'm you know, at this point today, and I want to be at point B, and how do I get from point A to B? Okay, great. So what am I going to see along this path? You know, what are the roses I will see? What are the thorns I will see? What are the milestones that I'm going to encounter? How, what should I be looking out for?
So I think that's the good thing about financial planning. Once you've started this journey, and if you've planned well, essentially you've already removed all the things, right? Said, okay, if this happens, I know I have a plan to deal with it. For example, the first step really is to say, okay, like I said, these are my goals, how I make this journey. And for achieving or to make this journey, equipped with a few things. One of them is really making sure I'm earning my money, or creating different revenue streams for myself. Second is saying, how do I consistently save and invest more money? So investing is one of the big pillars of financial planning. And the second piece is ensuring that that I manage my risks, which is, could be any risk, job loss, could be loss of earnings, could be any big financial dent, could be medical emergency. So between the gamut of investing and insurance, you make sure that you've covered all your risks and your money is growing to meet your goal. So once this planning is like a black box, right?
So just to recap, you said figure out how you will generate wealth. Once you've generated the wealth, figure out how that money will grow. And as you're doing that, figure out what sort of risks might hit you. Okay, great.
Okay. And plan, I think, and then it's like a black box, right? Once you've decided and put that formula in, it really doesn't need much except monitoring every 6 months your plan and saying, okay, does it need any tweaking at all? Based on any changed circumstances, any changed event. That's all. So it's actually just that one-time step that you've taken that, all it needs is a bit of monitoring.
Okay, but like for a lot of women, they don't even understand asset classes, right? So I can tell you my requirements. So you said if I'm here today, I figure out where I want to be. So that's step one. Then what's next? If I say, okay, I want 2 crores in the bank by 2030, what's next?
So it's a simple decision. Where do I put my money that I've earned and the money that I've saved? How do I invest it? And that's the biggest decision that you take. How do I distribute my money? For example, classes are any instrument in which you put your money in and which has a similar underlying. So for example, real estate is asset class, gold is asset class, equity or stock markets are an asset class, share class, bonds are an asset class. And you've got to decide which of classes will I put my money in, which is where personalization comes in. So for example, if you are 30 years old and you're starting your investing journey today, then for you, an asset allocation typically, and there are these golden rules that you can blindly follow. You're 30, you say, okay, I'm deduct 30 from 100 and 70 is what I put into equity and 30 is what I put into debt. And I put a 5 or 10 gold. The asset allocation is very age specific and personalized to what your goals are. But a lot of women say, oh my God, but if I have to invest in equity or in shares or in mutual funds, I don't know which one should I go about.
Sure.
Entire gamut of really decision making, the most important decision making is asset allocation. That is
sure.
That contributes to 95% of what your investing result will. And the rest of it is market timing, selection of which stock, etc., which is barely a 5%. So the important is, and the difference between really, saying, okay, have I timed it now or have I timed it 6? Have I, bought it months later? That is nothing over a period of time. It's very, less than a 2%. So essential to that is the next important step when you do financial.
Okay, so let's go a little bit deeper into asset allocation. You mentioned debt, equity, gold, cash, real estate, etc. A question here from Beena who's asking, should the portfolio always be diversified? So, if you said you gave the example of like 80 equity, 20 debt, which then again had no gold, real estate, alternatives, commodities, all of that other good stuff. So what sort of asset allocation, would you recommend to people?
So like Veena said, I think women understand it best. Diversification, which is put all your eggs in one basket. I remember my saying it. So diversification is a must, is a necessity for a good financial plan. And when I say debt and equity, so for example, you've already diversified debt, equity, and gold. To me, real estate, depending on what stage of life you are, right? Say you're 40, 45, build build your wealth by growing your money. Investing is when you look at really getting, when you're starting to kind of tie yourself into and say, I'm going to pay the EMIs is not really investing, right? There's a great book on Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You put your money towards assets and not towards liabilities. So for me, with the broad asset classes are debt, equity, and a little bit of gold. Now, if you want to really diversify within, if 70% of your portfolio is equity or stocks, within that, either buy stocks, or you can invest in 4 or 5 mutual funds, and each equity mutual funds then has another 50 or 60 stocks in it. So there is allocation, and within each asset you further diversified. So so diversification, asset allocation by itself is a way of diversification, and then within each
within the asset classes you can further diversify. Okay, great. Okay, so Beena, I hope that answered your question. I want to, for people who are looking at this as a career option, I just want to dig a little bit deeper into that. Like when you're assembling your team, what are the kind of skill sets you're looking at? What sort of people go into financial planning? What makes a good professional in the financial planning space?
So, I mean, there are, of course, a lot of, I think qualifications or degrees that you, for example, analyst, CFA is a very well-known, degree or a qualification that works for. Having said that, I think, in terms of education, I have seen personally, my experience, people who have a background of engineering and then a finance qualification actually bring great value to financial services and set up like Lucky, right? Because your mind then gets, and the world of financial planning as well as dynamically. So today you have algo trading, there's just so much of it, and it's not as, for the new concept of investing is unitized, which is saying that you kind of bring together a basket of asset classes. It could be a mix of debt, equity, US equities, gold, bring it all together and then offer it and break it into units and offer it to investors. So they already have a unit of diversified. Now that's the new, form of investment. So therefore, the mix of engineering and finance does brilliant, it does brilliantly in this space.
Okay. So in terms of skill sets, that's the kind of skill set you like or that you recommend. In addition to qualifications, what else do you look for when you're hiring to build a team? Especially for senior level hires, what do you look for? What are you looking for when you're recruiting?
So I think, to me, and I think this has become a norm across, I think I first look at the person, really, in terms of, the person, in terms of the passion, enthusiasm that the person brings, what is very important. And followed by, of course, skill sets, saying, for example, if it's a CEO, then your skills that you are essentially more, kind of inside as well as outside. And you look at both of these, balance both of these. How do you bring, connect the dots between networking outside and managing the internally. And of course, you have domain knowledge. So if I'm looking for a CEO in the commodity space, then the knowledge of commodities is very, very critical. If I'm looking for a CEO within the LXME space, the domain knowledge of fintechs is very critical. So depending on the business, those colleges. But I think for me, primarily, if I rate, kind of look at it in descending order, uh, the person first, essentially, which is passion, was, to me, values and ethics are one very, very important space that I always like to look at before you recruit, followed by skill sets, followed by then, of course, education, experience, or
Okay, very interesting you said that, Preeti, because I remember when we did a case on General Electric at Harvard, they asked Jack Welch this question. They said, "What do you look for in people?" And he actually echoed exactly the same sentiment. He said, "I look for values over skill any day." He said, "Skill, I can teach you skill. I'm all about skills, but values is what you bring with you, and it's something that we can't teach you in a company." So I think what you said was also beautifully framed. Okay, this is also a question we can address. Sorry, you want to go ahead?
we say this to a lot of people, a lot of youngsters who are just starting their, careers, is that the first thing that you need to keep in mind is, your values and ethics in terms of really the commitment. Today, I see a lot of, and I see this very often. People will take up offers and then completely ghost you. And that's strange. And I just feel, of course, at higher levels, people don't do it. But even at entry level, that it really matters, your commitment. Communicate. If there's an issue, communicate. Because that really goes
Sure.
up very.
Sure. Okay, great. So what's next for Lakshmi? What does the 5-year plan look like? How are you guys sort of, planning your growth strategy? What's on your mind? Like, what's the vision look like?
So Lakshmi is essentially, it's like I said, it's the money app for women. Our community is growing very rapidly. It's like the happy place for women to come and discuss, talk about. The vision for Lakshmi is really to have, at least a million women on the platform, talking about money, to kind of a mentor, mentee kind of roles within the community where woman is from the other. And of course, women actively investing and having their planning in place. Because to me, like I've said, that is true equality. But beyond that, I think when women invest, when they grow their money, they invest back into the community and into their family. And that to me is a society. It's something that will change the way communities and societies. And that is the impact. That is really the vision of Lakshmi. For us, I think the first milestone is to have, 1 million women on the platform, part of community. We have the entire platform is seamless, already there with all the products that you need, very, very tailored to. And a lot of women, a lot of men, a lot of people ask me why, what is it that about women? So, everything that the way they think, whether it's, essentially conservative mindset, we are disciplined, we are goal oriented, and
Sure.
really break all those things. Transaction platform is, a place where they can come and make those decisions without any friction, simple decisions to make. And then there is a community where they come and talk about money. We have a power club, forum kind of groups of women who come together.
Okay.
15 women in a group, and it's like a forum. And
Right.
this money, money without really being judged with the money code. So they do this
Sure.
2 years to be really financially trained, that they know they can take their financial decisions completely independently. So yeah, Lakshmi is actually an entire, like I said, it's a money for women.
Okay. It sounds like a little microcosm for women that you've created. And 1 million lives will obviously, as you rightly said, with women, they would invest back in their homes, their families, their communities. So the ripple effect of that 1 million will definitely be sort of snowballed into a lot more impact. Thanks, Preeti, for being the genesis of that impact, uh, and really sort of, taking all your own life experiences, personal learnings, just the kind of family you were brought up in, your drive and determination to ensure that you had a voice, you went and educated yourself, and you could very easily have rested within the comfort and confines of the family business, but you chose to spearhead something that you truly believed in. Absolutely inspiring, Preeti. I'm personally super inspired by your journey, and thank you so much for being so candid and open with your sharing, because I think that's what really makes a difference, and lots of takeaways today from this very rich talk. So thank you deeply. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for this.
Thanks, Vibha. It was such a pleasure. Really good to be here, and also you're doing some fantastic work doing that. As you know, my son is a big fan. So
I am a big fan of your sons. You know that too. We have a mutual admiration society going on, and so thank you, Preeti. Look forward to connecting with you once again. Thank you. We'll allow you to just exit the chat now.
great. Thanks. Bye, Vibha.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.